Michael D. Leonardo, also known as Mikey Scars. The government says he's a high-ranking member of the Gambino crime family.
No Excuses with Michael D. Leonardo. I'm your host, RJ Roger, and today we have a special guest. We're going to do a bit of a special here today. We have a expert opinion. We have with us Joe Lanfranchi. He's a longtime local 282 foreman, and he's going to provide us with some information, some inside information from a guy who was on the floor, a guy who was there, a guy that has deep relationships and a lot of experience in the field. Michael, I'm going to throw it to you, and then you pitch it to Joe for an introduction on himself and then a little bit about who he is.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Joe's going to give us an insight outside of my insight and my perspective of Local 282, the Teamsters local that the Gambino family controlled. Joe has been gracious enough to do this for history, to put history in its place, like we always say. That's our mantra: history in its place. Joe's going to give you an inside look of things that I didn't know. He's told me some stories and brought me up to speed on things that predated me in that union when I had zero to do with construction. Joe was there with a lot of others, and you will enjoy hearing their names that you think would predate Joe, but do not. Joe was there first. So hope you all enjoy this. This is a piece of history you're about to watch and hear, and I think it's be on the books forever. Anybody wants to refer to this. So thank you, Joe, so much for coming on here and indulging us.
Yeah. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, RJ. Thank you for having me. We kind of like kicked around, how we would start this. And I think the best way to start this is, we talk about, our heritage, where we came from, where our parents came from, where our grandparents came from. And it's quite ironic that, my heritage and Michael's heritage are so closely related. And here we are, 40, 50, 60 years later, whatever. And, here we are sitting together talking about all these things. My mother was born and raised on Elizabeth Street in Lower Manhattan. There was 8 of them. She had 4 brothers. One of them was a maid. Her brother Joe was a maid. Her brother Mikey was with a gentleman, Tom DeBella, who Michael knows. And Charlie goes back to the Cuban days. He was there when they were in the Hotel Nacional in Cuba, when they were looking to, make hotels and gambling, bring all that to Cuba. And he was there with them. My mother's family is from Shaka, the Shakadani. My father came from Messina. So, you talk about pure Sicilian genes. There's not a lot of guys like Michael and I. I mean, we're probably dinosaurs at this stage of the game. You talk about purebred thoroughbreds. Well, you're looking at 2 guys that are purebred thoroughbreds. So that background in itself, later on in life, lended me the ability to be with certain people. Like Michael knows, you get vetted, when you're around certain guys. I mean, they want to know everything, who's your mother, who's your father, are there any cops in your family, a plethora of things. They want to make sure that these, somebody that's around them, understands. And I'm not saying I understand that life better than anybody or, more than anybody, but from an early age, I was always around it. At Christmas time, the holidays, I was born and raised on 79th Street in Bensonhurst. We later moved to 75th Street, Bay Ridge Parkway. I grew up in that environment down the block from Terra Grossa's, which is a funeral parlor. It looks more like a nightclub than a funeral parlor. But so that background, later on in life gave me the ability to really just, be able to, to be with certain people. As time went on, we're looking probably in the early 70s. We talked about Bruce Kay. Bruce Kay was a business agent for Local 282. Bruce came up the ranks, and I explained to Michael that John Cody and John Cody's family adored Bruce. John Cody was obviously married. Millie was his wife. She loved Bruce. He had 2 children, Michael, who was a stockbroker, and Teresa, who worked at the local. She worked on the pension and welfare side. I don't remember what her position was, but obviously, it was a substantial position because her father was the president of the local. But, talking about John Cody, John Cody was a genius. What he did for the common working man, nobody did. Before these contracts that he designed and negotiated for the working man, he gave the working man the ability to make a living, have benefits, medical, dental, eyeglass, have a pension. A guy puts in, 20, 25 years, at least the guy can retire and have a little nest egg. And John was a genius, the things that he did. And these contracts, other unions looked at these contracts and looked at what he did. And, they took these contracts or the things that he wanted for the working man and mirrored them. So he affected the whole industry, the whole construction industry. It was just amazing, what he was able to do. Before these contracts, a driver would pull up to a job and, the GC or the guy that was running the job, oh yeah, after you finish delivering that whatever, that wire, those nails or that wood, bring it upstairs and help the plumber. And that's what was, was going on in the 60s, 50s. And John just changed the whole way of thinking. These contracts, when a union driver got to a job, his only responsibility was to deliver the material. Somebody had to take it off the truck. Somebody had to bring it to the elevators, So that created a lot of jobs for other trades. So getting back to Bruce became a business agent, and John loved him. And Bruce, I sent you a picture of Bruce. I don't know. Maybe you want to put that up and have people, see what Bruce looked like. Handsome guy. He looked like Paul Newman. To know him was to love him. He was a good guy. How I know Bruce, we went to high school together. Bruce and I went to high school together. We were on the same wrestling team. And, we became very, very good friends. As time went on, Bruce and I bought a house together. We bought a 2-family house on the island, and we lived together. We were inseparable. Bruce, and again, like I said, Bruce was a business agent. But talking about Bruce, unfortunately, it didn't work out for him. He came home one night, and we sat down, we were talking, and he says to me, and he gives me one of these looks, and I said, what's up? He says, well, I had a meeting with Paul and Tommy Bellotti. Okay. He says, John wanted me to tell him this, tell him that, whatever the message was. He says, it didn't go well. I says, what do you mean it didn't go well? He says, well, it got a little, loud. I says, what are you talking about it got loud? What are you telling me? And obviously this is all about concrete, because that was really like the big thing. The concrete was a big thing. So he says to me, well, I said, what's the matter? He says, well, that didn't really, go that well. I said, what do you mean? He says, it got a little loud. I says, well, what do you mean it got a little loud? What are you telling me? I says, who you're talking to. He says, yeah. And he kind of like blew it off. Okay. Time goes on, I don't know, 4, 5, 6, 7 months. He comes to me and he tells me, this is the night before. He says, tomorrow morning I got to get up early. I got a meeting with Frankie. I said, all right, I'll talk to you in the afternoon. So, and normally every day, sometime during the day, we communicate, something had to get done. So 3 o'clock comes rolling around. I don't hear from him. So I call the office and I speak to John Cody's secretary, Audrey. Now, Audrey is John Cody's personal secretary. She's his right-hand girl. I mean, anybody that went into that office had to go through Audrey. Now, Audrey is living with us. Now, Audrey is going out with Bruce. That's Bruce K's girlfriend now. And she's living with Bruce in our house. So I call up. I said, Audrey, did you speak to Bruce? And she says, no. She says, have you spoken to him? I says, no. She says, all right, I'll see you when I get home. All right. 6 o'clock comes rolling home. She comes home. Did you hear from him? No. I says, and I haven't either. Now, knowing what I knew and, understanding, that life, at that minute, at that point in time, I knew something was amiss. So the next morning, no Bruce. So now I speak to John Cody. I speak to Tom Patrizzo, and I'll get into how I know Tom. And I was advised to go to the first precinct and file a missing persons report, which I did. So I strolled into the first precinct. I need to file a missing persons report. They blow me off. He's probably with a girl, how old? 28, 28. He's probably, maybe he went to Puerto Rico. Made light of it. Okay. The next morning, that night, maybe the detectives came up on somebody's desk. They did a little research. That was it. The hell gates open at my house. Questions this, what's that? I don't know what to tell you guys. And meanwhile, I was told don't avoid them. Whatever you know. And they knew I knew nothing. I mean, what did I know? I knew that he got up for work that morning and he never came home. So now time goes on. 3, 4 months, maybe 2 or 3 months. They finally end up finding Bruce K at LaGuardia Airport. Somebody parked their car and they went to I don't know where the police are, the police station on the airport, Port Authority. They said, we just parked our car and there's like a bad smell. Sure enough, they go to the car, they pop the trunk open. There's Bruce. He's in the trunk, he's dead. So now it's a murder. So it got really, really tough for me because as we know in that life, it's somebody very close that does the dastardly deed of either walking their friend in, setting them up, because who's going to get that person? Who's going to be able to maneuver that person to a place where they could accomplish what they want to do? And ultimately that was to kill Bruce. So FBI, Queens organized crime, Nassau County organized crime, Suffolk County organized crime, Angatsongul organized crime, everybody you could think of, they're up my butt. Everybody wanted to interview me. Everybody wanted to sit with me. Everybody wanted to see what I knew, what I didn't know. Maybe I'm the guy. They don't know. They don't know me. They don't know my relationship with him or anybody else. At that time, Bruce and I, we were very friendly with this lawyer, Ernie Peace. I don't know if you ever heard of Ernie Peace, Michael. No. Ernie Peace was a big criminal lawyer in Nassau County. Ernie was a good guy. And Ernie was always advising me, and he knew I knew how to handle myself, and he knew I was going to put myself in jeopardy, say something. It didn't matter at that point because The only thing I knew was that he got up for work and he never came home. As far as his business and his doings with 282, it wasn't my plan. I don't, listen, he goes to work. I don't know, whatever he does, he does. What do I know, So a little short time after that, what started, now they really started to crank on me because the Newsday reporter that was writing all the articles for organized crime at that time, his name was Kenneth Crow, and he was like the main guy for organized crime on Long Island. I come home and I see this guy in front of my house. I woke up. I says, hey, "Can I help you?" Yeah, my name is Kenneth Crow. I'm with Newsday. I says, "Yeah, okay. Well, what can I do for you?" I says, "Listen, bro. I don't know where you're going, what you want." I says, "But do me a favor. Get off my property. See you later." So, as I explained to Michael, I used to play. I was an athlete. I played hardball until I was in my late 30s. Just Sunday morning, I'm coming home. I got my uniform on. I'm all dirty with, sliding into home plate and, sweaty. I pull up to the house. I see a couple of cars. There's my father-in-law's there, Tommy Cuccaro. I know you know that name. A couple of other guys. And then I walk in, and they got the Newsday open. Second page. So the article is the ties to crime patronage, right? And it talks about Cody. It gives a little brief synopsis about Cody, and they talk about how Bruce was waiting trial for the murder of Leopold Ladendorf, an alleged mob loan shark waterproofer, how Ladendorf's body was found in a trunk. And they talked about how Bruce was found in a truck and the murder was never solved. It goes on to say his murder has never been solved. Police sources say the leading suspects are two Teamster working foremen who are among his closest associates. The next bullet point is me. So what were they trying to do? So now they talk about me, how they use the word initiated into Local 282 18 days after Bruce's body was found. Really making me look like not good, Anybody that would read this article will say, yo, something's wrong here. I mean, this is like, if I was a reasonable person, I would have to say, there may be something there. Then they talk about Frank DeCicco in the article. So it's me and Frank DeCicco. Wow, it's like, well, what's going on here? So, I go on my merry way. My wife is a school teacher in the school district that's 5 miles from my house. She said, "What's going to happen when I go to work? I mean, these people." I said, "Stephanie, don't worry about it. Nothing's going to happen. Trust me." I says, "Watch." Sure enough, she goes to school. The principal's like waiting for her to open up the door and let her in. She comes home. I said, I told you. I says, there's nothing. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about anything. Time goes on. And this is 1970, I believe it was 1979 when they found Bruce. So 79, with 282, I get my first Teamster foreman job. I'm a Teamster foreman, which is a big, big, big deal. There's 4,000 members at that time. And I mean, I don't want to consider myself a dignitary, but, only special people got these jobs. I mean, you're talking about captains, Michael, Joe Watts, Frank DeCicco, Joe Lanfranchi. How does that all fit? How do I fit? Like, what is going on,
Okay. Joe, you spoke about a Frank that Bruce went to go meet. Could you give us a history on who Frank may have been? And was Frank a Teamster foreman? Had Frank get that job and when he got that job? And any other details you could follow up Was Carl Gambino the boss at that time? Was Paul Castellano with Cody? When did John Cody, if you know, get in to be the president of that local? Things of that nature. Let's lay a little more foundation. I may understand it. RJ may understand it. You definitely understand it. But for the people out there, let's give them a little history on that. And my position about, let's say, a guy like Bruce, his proximity, his closeness with family, with John Cody. John Cody was a real tough guy, as we know, right? And we'll talk about something he did try to do to Bobby Sasso later on. We'll get into it as the story unfolds. But Bruce was a messenger, right?
Bruce was a messenger.
Yeah, to that message, whatever Cody told him
was a message
to tell those guys. Bruce got into it with them, Paul and Tommy. And I guess Bruce's personality was that he pushed back. The decibel level, we don't know, but according to you, what he said, he got a little heated. So he kept pushing back on Cody's word, defending whatever Cody's message was there. That's what the wrong thing. Which may have cost him his life. We don't know. Could have been over the murder in the background that he did months earlier, or a year earlier, whatever it was, or could have been this beef. So if you can lay out for us about Frank, could it be Frank DeCicco? Could you tell us a little about Joe Watts? Because I know, as we spoke in the past, that Frank, when he stepped down and Joe Watts stepped down for that job as Teamster foreman, he had offered it to me to take his spot on the job. And I don't know if you ever heard my name mentioned, but Frank was replaced on the jobs. So if you give us a little history of that for everybody here, I think that'll clear some things up.
So probably in the early mid-70s, Frank DeCicco comes out of jail, gets out of jail, and Bruce was the person, the delegate that put Frank DeCicco on his first Teamster foreman job, which is the Hempstead recycling plant. So Bruce had a connection and a tie with Frank DeCicco. Obviously they were close. They probably hung out together. I mean, I'm sure they had a relationship because you just don't get jobs like that or give jobs like that. I mean, now Frank DeCicco, I don't know who was handling Cody at that time because Sammy wasn't there yet. This is in the early 70s. Sammy Gravano was not there yet. Sammy eventually handled Cody, and Bobby Sapp. I don't think he handled Cody. I think Cody was out by then.
Yep.
Cody had gotten convicted. John Cody had gotten convicted for labor racketeering. He got sentenced to 5 years. So that was the end of him. So Bruce K gave Frank DeCicco his first job.
Only very special people got these positions, not just anybody.
Yeah.
What was it that made you a guy that was selected? What was the special trait that you had, or what did they see in you and want to put you there?
So, like I said, there were 4,000 members, and there wasn't a lot of these jobs. I mean, if there were 50 of them, I'm guessing
a lot at that time, right? But lay it, if you can, explain the Teamster foreman job, why it was special, and what kind of contract there was to get that job, and the job really shouldn't even have existed. But that was one of Cody's things he claimed to fame, what he created.
Right.
I didn't even know that. So that's news to me because I didn't know that.
Yeah, Cody created that contract. It's called a high-rise contract. I think there were 3 or 4 different contracts for 282. There was high-rise, sand and gravel, maybe warehouseman, and each contract was a different level of pay grades and benefits. Right. So as a Teamster foreman, I mean, like I told, we were talking, it was like almost like hitting the lottery. So here you are at a certain dollar value. A Teamster foreman got placed on a job, a construction site. Now this is all high rise. I'm talking; these are major jobs that are going on in Manhattan. AT&T building, IBM building, World Trade Center, Battery Park City,
Trump Tower, Hemsley Hotel. I could tell you funny stories about Leona Hemsley. She was a truck driver.
So there was a lot, major jobs going on. So here's the Teamster foreman. Everything that goes on a job, whether it's a nut, a bolt, a screw, anything, steel, is on wheels. And 282 is the vehicle, is the union that controls everything that comes on a job site. So where the jobs are set up is in the initial stages of the job, they have to dig a hole. So, they pick out this square block and they put a fence around it and they set up a trailer. And the trailer is for the Teamsters. So, we have our own office, phones, coffee machines, whatever. I mean, they gave us everything. So, trucks would pull up. We knew who was who had contracts, who did, who didn't. An interesting point, and Michael had brought this up, what happened with guys that came over the road? This was another brilliant idea that we came up with. So we all knew Ace came on the job, or one of the, concrete trucks. We knew who had contracts, who didn't. So here's a poor guy, maybe a contractor, in a pinch, had to get material on the job, and he hires a freelance guy to deliver. This guy shows up on the job. Well, we don't know him. Where's, you have your book, your dues are paid. No. Well, okay. So now we go to the GC and we tell the GC, you got a load of wire there. This guy doesn't have a book. He's not in the union. Tell you what we'll do. Call the office, get a hold of like Audrey or somebody. Give me a list of guys, 282 guys that are not working. Give us their names. So we always had a list, 4 or 5 guys that weren't working, that needed a paycheck, more importantly, needed the hours, because you had to have so many hours per month to get the pension and welfare. So we give the contract the name and the social security number of one of our guys that wasn't working, and what we do is we claim that truck and that driver. So at the end of the week, the contractors would go into the office and they'd give us checks made out to different guys in our local, and got a day's pay and got their hours for when they for their pension and welfare, because they needed that. So that was a way of getting around that. But every minute of every day of every hour, we got paid. So towards like the middle of the job, when they're really cranking, right? They want to get these jobs done. They're working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Holidays. Now we getting paid regular time. Then now it's nighttime, we're getting time and a half. Now Saturday comes, we're getting double time. Sunday comes, we're getting triple time. If it's a holiday, I don't know what the hell they gave us. I don't know. They must have, I don't know, maybe they were giving us trips to Bermuda. I don't know. But I mean, we made a lot of money. I mean, I'm not uncommon. I was making over 100,000 a year. Then this is like late 70s. If we take the numbers now, it's like 300,000-400,000 a year. Then the perks of having that job. That's a whole nother, it's like an NBA player signing a contract with the Miami Heat. Now he's got, the shirts and the sneakers and, all the perks. It was the same with us. I mean, Christmas time, every contractor, and you're talking, there's a lot of contractors that are on these jobs, different trades. You got plumbers, you got this, that, and every year the envelopes would come. I mean, every envelope had at least 500,000, 2,000. So Christmas time, it wasn't unusual. I'd come home with 20 grand, maybe more. Who knows? I don't remember, but it was all cash. It was a lot of money. So we were making a lot of money for working guys. But how do you get these jobs? How? Like what? There's 4,282 people, and there's maybe 50, I'm guessing, 50, 100 of these jobs. Who got these jobs? And getting back to only special people. And like talking captains, the Gambino family, You got Mikey over here, Michael here. You got Joe Watts, Frankie DeCicco. I don't know, maybe Michael could add more names.
Were these the people who were essentially, were these 50 positions? Those guys, everybody in that seat, they knew you play ball with us, do what we tell you to do, kind of thing.
Who's playing ball with us?
The people who they're picking for these foreman positions.
No. You, like I said, you had to be somebody special, somebody that was connected. Otherwise, they just didn't pull somebody off the street and say, "Listen, you've been with us. You've been a Teamster for 20 years. We're going to give you this job. You're a good guy." No, it didn't work like that.
No, I think what RJ meant, I think what he meant was that when you were placed there by these people to give you this job, that you understood the rules you would be holding, and you represented the person and the union, and you got to be at the top of your game, and your loyalty has to be to them, whoever put you in the job.
Yeah,
that you were controlled by the people that put you there.
Yeah. So in the beginning, when I was first there, John Cody was the president, and even at that time there were two sanctions. There was always two sanctions. There was the John Cody guys, and Bobby Sasso. Bobby Sasso was the vice president, and there was always tension. There was always because John Cody and Bobby Sasso. Not that I don't want to say they didn't get along. I mean, they had to get along a little bit, but no, there was no love there. There was no love lost there. And Bobby always used to say, I've been in his presence. He says, "Bajanzia, we got timers on our side," because he knew Cody was in his 60s, early 60s, in 70s. He was in his early 60s. So, he wasn't going to be around that much longer, maybe, another 4 or 5 years. And that was it. And Bobby eventually was going to get that position. We brought up Mike Carbone. Mike Carbone was a Cody guy. He wasn't a Sasso guy. Mike Carbone was loyal to John Cody. But then Cody eventually, like I said, got convicted of organized crime, and then he got sentenced to 5 years. And Bobby became the president of the local.
Now, Joe, wasn't there already an oversight in the pension and welfare side?
Good point. So what had happened when Cody went to jail? They brought in a judge. His name was Jacob Mishler. Mishler. He was a federal judge, and he ran the pension and welfare side. So there was a lot of money. In the early 70s, I think it was 1974, 282, John Cody was going to lend Hyman Green, $20 million to build a hotel in Las Vegas. It was a big deal. 282 is going to get their tentacles into, the Strip. Las Vegas, and they were going to build this major hotel, 1,000-room hotel. I mean, nothing small. 1,000 rooms is a big hotel. But the federal government got involved, and there was some, problems with how the loan was going to be structured, because Cody had bought 1,600 acres of land in eastern Suffolk County. He bought a country club. 282 bought it. And 282 owned it. And that was going to be put up for collateral for the loan. It was very complicated, and it went to the wayside because the feds got involved, and there was a microscope on everything, and they were looking at everything. So, like I said, after Cody got arrested, Michelin, the judge, a federal judge, came in and ran the pension and welfare side, and that's when things started. We're getting into like the 80s now. Now we're going, forward. This is late 80s, and everybody's under a microscope. And this is late 80s now. I was asked to leave the union. So,
well, let me take you back, because we don't want to skip that much of a gap. So now Frankie DeCicco resigns from his position. Joe Watts resigns from his position, and others are put in those positions. Now, the cause and effect, you think Frankie might have resigned after Bruce Kay's death? Do you think that had any cause to it? Do you think that with the oversight and the pension and welfare that was there, Frankie was bringing heat to the place?
Exactly.
Also?
Exactly. That's
Now,
what was happening.
Yeah. So this is something that I think you and I could agree on, is that the mob presence with the oversight with the pension and welfare that was abused, and Cody's vision, which would have been tremendous. The guy was investing his money, maybe taking advantage of the pension and welfare, but his vision was to grow and invest these money, just like in some movies that we see that was done from other hotels that were built with union monies going way back, right?
Right.
Going back to when Cody goes away, explain how Bobby Sasso gets in and who's part of Bobby Sasso's new administration, if you can.
So, Cody goes away, now Bobby's the president, and he's got his own crew. He's got his own guys that are loyal to him, Patty and Nino, a bunch of other guys. Mike Carbone was there. Mike wasn't going to go anywhere. I mean, there was Gesualdi, Joe Gesualdi, Mike Bergal. These were guys that were still there. They weren't going to go anywhere, but the union had to clean itself up. They were under a big microscope. There was a big flashlight on us. So they really needed to clean their act up. And guys like Frank DeCicco and Joe Watts and Michael DiLeonardo, this could create problems because it was no secret who they were. I mean, the FBI knew who they were. So, somebody like me, for instance, I didn't have that criminal background. And as time went on, some of these companies, I'm going to mention AJ Ross and some other companies. Some of these companies, they wanted to expand, but Rudy Giuliani put in a thing called Vendex. And so let's say a company wanted to have a spinoff, all right? They were a concrete company. They wanted to do rebar, they wanted to do asphalt, or they wanted to, expand their operation, but they wanted to separate it. They couldn't because they would never pass the litmus test. And the litmus test would be either they were in or they were in the Gambino family. I mean, there's no secret who they were. So somebody like me was a perfect vehicle for them. And I was slated to do this. We were going to open up or spin off a rebar company, and I would be the president of it or run it or whatever. But what had happened was when the oversight came in, things started getting really, sticky, and guys were afraid that, who's going to get pinched, who's the next one that's going to get arrested, and the labor racketeering. Because don't forget, not only did you have the judge up there, you had the NLRB, which is the National Labor Relations Board, who was an overseer of unions, because these were chapters. Like it was like a 282 was a chapter. They got a what's the word I want, Michael? They it's like a ticket to open up a union, and that was given by the National Labor Relations Board. So they watched. They didn't want this notoriety. They wanted the appearance of being this clean, robust union that provided good wages for the working people, which they did. I mean, you can't take it away from 282. They did wonderful things for the working man. But as time went on, things started getting hairy, and I know Michael had to resign, Joe Watts had to resign, Frankie had to give up his job. So anybody that really, who they knew that was really connected to organized crime in whatever way, they had to bow out. They had to get out of the way and let the union operate as cleanly as possible. Nothing changed. We're going to talk about the concrete committees and how they control the price of concrete. Who got the contract to bring the steel in, who got the contracts for rebar, So that was all, nothing changed. The family was still getting, what they needed to get, what they owned, what companies the families owned.
So let's get back to when Paul's the boss, right, at this point, and DB's now help run Robert DiBernardo. DB's helping run 282.